Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. We have special guest Stephen Jaffe is with us. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hello, Jimmy.
Now, if you don't know Stephen, he's running against Nancy Pelosi for Congress. Oh my God, we need to get rid of Nancy Pelosi. You know I'm partisan on this, but let's find out what you're all about, Stephen. Now, Stephen, why are you running for Congress against Nancy Pelosi?
I'm running for Congress in the 12th District, Jimmy, because the people of San Francisco deserve a voice in Congress, and they do not have a voice in Congress. Right now, they're represented by a person who perceives herself as a national political figure, but she does not vote and act like a representative of the people who live in the city. I've been walking around for several years. I think I know what they want and how they feel, and she does not vote the way that they want her to vote. The biggest example of that, which we can expand on, would be this single-payer issue, but there's a whole list of other issues in which I sharply differ from her and agree with my future constituents.
Well, all right, fantastic. So you're a real progressive.
I believe so.
Right, so you're for single-payer, correct. You're for living wage.
Yes.
You're for ending the wars.
Oh, yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, you almost gave me my heart a skip there for a second. How do you feel about free college tuition for state universities?
Well, I think that should exist. I think that the policy reason behind that is that our country has a reason, a public service reason to have educated people. That's the reason that kindergarten through high school is free, and there's no reason to stop at the university level. I think the same reason that we educate people through high school, we ought to educate them through college. Education is as important as anything. It affects things like science deniers, climate change,
right,
things like that. So I feel strongly for free public education.
So you would be for free public education from kindergarten to 16th grade?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And grad school for things like medical school, if we need doctors.
Fantastic. Well, you're an educated guy yourself. You've been a civil rights attorney and an employment lawyer for 46 years now. As an employment lawyer, you didn't represent companies; you represented employees exclusively, right?
That's correct. I will not represent any employer. I will only represent employees because of my my beliefs and values, and because I'm just not wired to represent an employer. Okay.
Well, Nancy Pelosi's very wired to represent the employers.
That's one word.
She's very wired. I mean, she brags that she's the biggest fundraiser in Congress, which is why she's a leader. People don't realize the way you become a leader. The reason why Nancy Pelosi is the leader in the House isn't because she's an actual leader or she has a vision and that she wants to take us in a progressive way. The reason why Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are the leaders for the Democrats in Congress is because they take the most money from big corporations, Chuck Schumer from Wall Street, and they pick them, by the way. Chuck Schumer is picked by Wall Street because he's the weakest, most spineless guy in the Senate that they can control completely. So that's why they pick him. Nancy Pelosi gets the most money. She fundraises the most from anyone. And then she takes that money she gets from big corporations and big money donors, and she spreads it around to her friends in Congress, so they vote for her to become the leader. So she's not an actual leader, right? So just so people understand, well, why Nancy Pelosi is pretty repulsive. Why is she a leader? That's why she's the leader. Okay, and we're seeing it now, how the Democrats are caving. How do you feel about how the Democrats are handling right now the budget debate? Because they just caved twice on DACA. Now, 9 out of 10 people in the country are for DACA. The Democrats won't even stand up for the most popular thing in the world. They won't represent the people they're supposed to represent.
Thank you. That is exactly the reason I'm running for Congress, because I do not aspire to be the Democratic leader or anything else other than the congressman from the 12th District. I want to represent the people in the city I've lived in since June of 1970.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Another thing that kind of drives. So we've seen what happened. So how would you handle this debate? This budget battle right now? Would you go along and give Trump everything he asked for? Would you fund the wall for asking for absolutely nothing in return, which is what the Democrats are getting?
Well, I would not cave the way that I perceive Senator Schumer caved, or the way that I felt my opponent caved on several other issues in the House. And that's because a couple of reasons. One, it's the wrong thing to do. But secondly, when you cave, it's been proven no less than just a few hours ago, and you make a deal with the Trump administration, they're going to change it anyway.
Yeah.
So you can't make a deal with somebody who's going to change the rules after you make your deal. So what did the Dems get back for caving for this?
Nothing.
All they got, I think what they think they got, was not being blamed for the shutdown, which they are being blamed anyway.
Right. So their donors didn't want them to shut down the government. So this is what, just so everyone knows what's happening. The reason why the Democrats are completely caving and getting absolutely nothing, even though 9 out of 10 Americans support DACA, it's unbelievable. The most unpopular president, the most unpopular Congress, and still the Democrats can't stand. The reason why they're doing this, a double cave in 1 week, is because their donors told them, don't shut down the government. And so their donors told them, screw over the people who you're supposed to represent and keep open the government means you represent me, the donor. Isn't that what happened?
That's exactly what happened, and that is exactly what happens on the big single-payer issue, which is the biggest issue, I think, in San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi says, well, I'm raising all this money, but who did she get it from? You asked the right question. In the case of single-payer, she's getting money from big pharma, for-profit insurance companies, and healthcare providers, and she's not taking that money without giving something up.
That's right.
They're not charitable institutions. And what do they want? They want her votes.
Go ahead.
And then she votes the donors. And when she passes out the money to the other Democrats in the House, she says, I'm going to give you this money, but you vote the way I want you to.
Right.
And that's why she opposes single payer, because all of her donors have a huge stake in making sure single payer is never passed by the Congress.
That is exactly right. You know, the Democrats today love to say about what Putin's investment was in Trump in the election, but they never talk about what Goldman Sachs' investment is, or Eli Lilly, right? Or Big Pharma, or Big Oil. What is their investment? When they give you money, what the F do you think they want back for that? They want something. Okay, we know exactly what it is. They want you to legislate in favor of corporations and not in favor of the people who you're supposed to be representing. Now, Stephen, you have a record of not coddling up to those people. So Nancy Pelosi has spent her whole career sucking up to people who run corporations and rich people and wealthy donors. You've spent your whole career fighting them and standing up to them.
That is correct. And I have 3 proposals which I think will fix that situation.
What are they?
Well, if I'm elected, I'm going to introduce in the Congress 2 constitutional amendments and 1 federal law. The constitutional amendments are 1, raising the right to vote to a constitutional level. Most people think the right to vote is a constitutional right. It is not. They're shocked to hear it is not. It needs to be, and that can be done with a constitutional amendment. The other one is to abolish the holding of Citizens United and to hold that free speech is not a right of corporations. A corporation is not a person for the exercise of free speech. That will change everything that we've been talking about, the donors. The legislation I have in mind, I call the Federal Election Integrity Act, which is going to be legislative law to preserve and protect the fair, transparent, and unbiased elections around the United States. It has a lot to do with what's called open source software, paper ballots in places they aren't used, methods of sampling. It gets a little techie, but it is essentially to preserve fair elections from tampering and tinkering from evil forces, which I think are doing some of that right now.
So your big 3 things would make the right to vote a constitutional guarantee, get rid of Citizens United, and have open and transparent elections. That would be kind of reform them. So right now there's no paper trail in lots of places because people vote electronically, which can easily be flipped and then you can't check it.
That's right, and it's flipped by proprietary companies which own the software that calculate the votes,
right,
and they won't show it. So I think that's an outrageous situation. The other thing that can be done, Jimmy, is I'm very much in favor of public financing of political campaigns. That's something that can be done quickly if passed into law, and that will mitigate a great amount of the effect of Citizens United, because progressives like me who are running against the moneyed, the 1%, like my opponent, will not have to go begging to corporations in order to get enough money to run a viable campaign.
And what do people in San Francisco, now you've been there since 1970, why do they keep voting for corporate Democrats like Nancy Pelosi? They're supposed to be actually, awake and lefty, and why would they vote for such a corporatist warmonger like Nancy Pelosi over and over? What do you hear in that district?
Well, I'm the first challenger to her in recent memory who has coming at her from inside her own party.
Oh, okay.
All of her recent opponents have been NPP, no party preference, or Cindy Sheehan ran as a Green. But I'm coming at her from inside the party.
Right.
So that's given me a little momentum that other people haven't had. Plus, she's had a terrible 2 years, and she's vulnerable right now. She keeps saying really kind of ridiculous things, which I'm sure I've seen you talk about, and shown videos, and she's vulnerable. And there is also the election of Trump has changed everything. There is a wave of progressive enthusiasm now, and I'm trying to be part of that. And so all these things I think will combine. Plus our top two primary system will help me.
Right. So we have a special system in California where the Democrats don't just vote in one primary and the Republicans vote in another. Everybody votes in the same primary, and the top two vote getters then face each other in the general in the fall. So it could be two Democrats, which it's probably going to be, or it could be two Republicans. But it's California, so we know that's not going to happen, right? So what happens in California is even Republicans call themselves Democrats. So that's why we have to be very careful when we vote Democrat in California, because lots of those people aren't actually what you would consider Democrats. They're really Republicans in Democrat clothing, which is the whole problem with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Did Nancy Pelosi vote for $80 billion extra for the military-industrial complex? Yes,
and I think the military budget, I think, is the only word I can describe it with is obscene.
It is obscene.
It is obscene, and the reason for that is that, in my opinion, the United States of America is culturally and economically addicted to being in a perpetual state of war.
It's endless war.
And it used to be that we made weapons and defense industries existed in order to make weapons when we needed to go to war. Now we go to war to keep these industries busy.
That's exactly
right. The whole
right.
thing is inverted and stood on its head, and that's got to stop. That has got to stop.
After World War I, all the companies that were making armaments went back to making whatever they were making before, right? After World War II, they just kept making bombs. They didn't stop. Right. So that's what's happening now. And Eisenhower warned us about the undue influence of the military-industrial complex.
He looks pretty good now, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And it's real. So that's real. We're spending over half our budget on the military. It's great. We don't even have a threat in the world. Russia spends $65 billion a year. We upped our spending $80 billion over the $500 billion we were already spending. It's crazy how much money we're bankrupt. This is how empires end.
And we make so much stuff that our military can't use all of it.
Right.
It's all sitting around. We sell it to foreign countries. We sell it to police departments.
Right.
And then they're getting militarized because we're selling all this stuff to police departments.
Let me ask you about also Nancy Pelosi, which a lot of people don't even talk about anymore. We just take it for granted. We live in a surveillance state. Where the government collects every phone call, text, and email you make. We have no constitutional Fourth Amendment protections, and she keeps voting. She voted for the Patriot Act. She wouldn't impeach George Bush, and now she says she wishes she had him back. She said that, Nancy Pelosi.
She misses him.
She misses George Bush.
She misses him, yeah.
She misses George Bush, the guy who started the illegal war. And lied to the American people, used 9/11 to then start his illegal war. Nancy Pelosi misses that guy. Are you sick and tired of those type of people? I'm sick and tired of those type of people thinking that we're supposed to vote for them. I'm not voting for that anymore. And that's why I'm glad there's a guy like Stephen Jaffe here, because you won't vote for a bloated military budget. You'll vote to reduce it, right?
That is correct, and I want to use those reduced funds to fix the infrastructure around the country. I view myself as kind of an FDR Democrat, but a 2018 edition of FDR. I think his values are they don't go away. I love his values, but they have to be articulated and implemented in a way that will resonate in 2018. So the WPA worked very well in the 30s to pull the country out of the Depression. We need something similar to fix the infrastructure in 2018 and beyond.
So Nancy Pelosi's son hung out on New Year's Eve at the Mar-a-Lago with the Trumps.
Yes, I saw that.
What's your? You have any? Well, my response to that was it's a big club and you ain't in it because the Pelosi's son could have went to a lot of parties. He could go to any party he wants. He went to Trump's party at Mar-a-Lago. What does that tell you?
Well, I don't know where the light bulb is for that particular individual, but what that tells me is it's a 1%er hanging out with more of the 1%ers.
Yeah.
And you said we're not invited to that party.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
correct.
Let me ask you this. Money in politics, when people talk about, they talk about Citizens United. But I think, I would like to know how you feel. I think it needs to go further than that. We need to have public financing of our elections, which would save us a lot of money, just like Medicare for All would save us a lot of money. If we had public financing of federal elections, that means that politicians wouldn't have to go suck up to corporations for money.
That's one of my planks.
Oh, so that
is a plank in my platform.
What? Tell me about public financing.
Yes, it's done it's on state and local levels. It's time to do it federally.
Yeah,
it will remove this gross discrepancy and disparity between the money being spent by corporations and individuals, and there's no reason not to do it.
Well, Stephen, you've stood up to the corporate. That's the thing. Like, you have a track record of standing up, and right now, the Democrats are proving once again that they are paid. They're chosen to be weak. Dick Durbin, Chuck Schumer, these people can't cave in. They caved in twice in 1 week. They got nothing for it. Nothing. And they only asked for one thing. They asked for one thing, which was DACA. Now they're not even asking for one. You're supposed to ask for a million things. By the way, anyway. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're running. At least people now in the district. It's the 6th district, correct, Stephen? 6th district?
12th district of California.
12th district.
This is Nancy Pelosi's 16th election.
Wow.
She has been in there 30 years. She wants to serve she wants to serve 32.
And Nancy Pelosi knows, I've told people on this show this, that when Republicans around in the middle of the country run against a Democrat, they don't run against their opponent. They run against Nancy Pelosi. And they say Nancy Pelosi, and she's a big drag on the party. Nancy Pelosi's a drag on the party, and that's a big reason why they've lost 1,100 seats statewide. They get wiped out in the Congress under Nancy Pelosi's leadership. And Nancy Pelosi still doesn't step down as leader. Even though she knows that she's hurting the party by being the face of the party, she still remains the leader. And that's because these are egomaniacs. And Nancy Pelosi's also a $100 millionaire. Am I correct? What's her net worth?
Well, it's estimated somewhere between $28 million and $280 million. So that is hers. That does not include her husband's, who's probably at least equal or greater.
So the kind of people who she's been in Congress for 30 years, and now she's worth somewhere between $28 million and $250 million. You know what kind of people amass that kind of money when they're in government? Criminals. Those are the kind, and that's not me saying that. That's Truman said that, okay? So those are the kind of people who get rich while they're in government, selling you out, by the way, to the highest bidder, which is why Nancy Pelosi's been in Congress for 30 years. You still don't have public option. You still don't have single payer. You still don't have free college. And we have the biggest income disparity since the Middle Ages. That's with her in power. One of the big things is corporate Democrats won't debate their challengers. Is Nancy Pelosi going to debate you?
She has not debated an opponent since 1987 when her opponent was Harry Britt, and she barely beat him. I have challenged her to a debate. I want a debate with unscripted questions that no one has ever seen, presented by a neutral moderator in front of an audience of genuine constituents. Every time she holds one of her town halls, which I will put in quotes, it is scripted and it's a sham. I want a real debate between the two of us with real questions that she has to answer.
So, Stephen, I really appreciate you coming in and letting people know more about you. And what do you want people to remember about you that will make them vote for you?
My name.
Stephen Jaffe. Nice. Stephen Jaffe. How do you spell Jaffe? Jaffie?
Jaffe.
Jaffe. Jaffe.
Frankly, it's said that when people hear you talk, what they remember is not so much what you said, but how you made them feel.
Yes.
And I'm hopeful that people who are listening to me understand that I'm sincere and I'm progressive in my views, and I will represent people. I will not take money from corporations, and I hope they'll consider and give me their vote. San Franciscans, vote for Jaffe on June 5th.
All right, Stephen Jaffe. We'll put a link right there to his website. Go ahead. If you want to volunteer, you want to support him, please do it. It's time to get the corporate Democrats out of Congress.